Hello, everybody. We are Siouxland Agriculture in the Classroom, and we are going to be joining your classrooms virtually a few times this year. We have shared some lessons with your teachers that we hope you will enjoy and things that you'll get to see. So you'll probably get to see us more than once this year. My name is Mrs. Clymer, and Mrs. Wagner will introduce herself in just a little bit. So when we talk about agriculture, the first thing that might come to your mind is a farm. So farming is agriculture. But on a farm, there's a lot of different things that could be. When we're talking about agriculture, the two main things we're talking about are livestock and crops. Now, livestock are animals you would see on a farm. So, when I think of livestock in Iowa, I think of pigs, cattle, there's beef cattle and dairy cattle. I think of poultry like our chickens and turkeys and sheep who give us lamb. Now, livestock are different than some of the other animals you might see on a farm. On this page, you don't see any horses, you don't see dogs or cats or donkeys, and that's because those animals don't provide food. Livestock are animals who provide milk, meat, and other products. So, livestock are the only animals who give us food. The other animals we talked about, like horses and dogs, have a job. They're called companions. And if I have a companion, that's my friend. So, those animals are a friend to us, and often they might have a job on a farm, but they're still not livestock because they don't give us any food. Okay, so we said agriculture is livestock. It is also crops. Now, we can grow a lot of different crops. Those are plants that grow in our fields and our gardens. But in Iowa, the two biggest crops we have are corn and soybeans. So, in Iowa, we have this field corn. This is harder. It's not the sweet corn that you eat in the summer. We can talk about that another time. But in Iowa, we grow more of this field corn than any other state in the United States. We have a ton of this, and most of the corn you see as you drive in the country is this field corn. The other crop we grow a lot of are soybeans, which I have here, and they're very small. Iowa is actually number 2 in the nation. Illinois grows just a few more than we do, our neighbor to the east. But these soybeans are the shorter plants you see when you drive in the fields. They grow not as tall as corn. Corn can grow about 8 feet tall. So look at your ceiling. That's close to 8 feet tall. But these soybeans are only going to grow about 3 or 4 feet tall. Maybe not even that tall. However, we use both of these crops to feed our livestock, and we also make a lot of products for people. And we will have other videos this year that talk about what people use them for. But today, I just want you to kind of understand why agriculture is important. Now, absolutely everything you eat starts on a farm, whether it's food in your lunchbox, food at your house, or even just a snack. Everything starts somewhere on a farm. Not always a farm in Iowa, but there's farms all over the world, and our farmers share the food they grow to get to your grocery store. So we're going to read this book next, and after we read this book, we've got a project you're going to work on today so that you remember why our farmers are so important. How did that get in my lunchbox? The story of food. One of the best parts of the day is when you lift the lid of your lunchbox to see what's inside. Your parents have packed it with lots of tasty things to eat. They probably got all the food from a grocery store, but food doesn't grow in stores. So where did it come from before it was in the store? Just how did all this food get in your lunchbox? How did the bread in your sandwich get in your lunchbox? A farmer planted seeds in spring, and by summer they'd grown into tall, waving wheat with fat, ripe grains at the tip of every stalk. The farmer cut the wheat with a giant combine harvester and sent it to a flour mill. The miller ground the grains into flour, and trucks took the flour to a bakery. The baker mixed the flour with water, sugar, and yeast, kneaded it into a soft, squishy dough, and baked it in a very hot oven. Out came fresh loaves of bread, ready to send to the store. How did the cheese in your sandwich get in your lunchbox? Your cheese was once milk that came from a cow. A farmer milked the cows, and a tanker from the dairy came to collect the milk. In the dairy, cheesemakers warmed up the milk and added bacteria to make it turn sour and thick. Then they added a substance that animals use to digest milk called rennet. And that changed it again into bits called curds floating in whey. They drained off the whey, chopped up the rubbery curds, and added some salt and pressed them into blocks. They stored the blocks for months until the cheese was ripe. How did your tomatoes get in your lunchbox? Last summer, your tomatoes were growing in a big plastic tunnel full of tomato plants. The sun and the warmth made the plants grow tall and bloom with yellow flowers. As each flower died, a tiny green tomato fruit began to grow from its middle. Day by day, the plants soaked up water, and the tomatoes swelled from green to orange to red. When bunches of ripe red tomatoes dangled from the branches, the grower picked them, sorted them, packed them, and sent them to the store. How did your apple juice get in your lunchbox? Last spring, the apple trees in the orchard were full of flowers. In the summer, tiny apple buds grew from each flower stalk. The buds kept growing, and by autumn, the trees were full of ripe, sweet fruit. Pickers climbed into the trees and filled their bins with fruit. A truck took the bins to the juice factory, where sorters threw out any rotten apples. Then a machine washed the rest and mashed them in a milling machine, seeds, skin, and all. A huge press squeezed the mash till all its juice ran out. A heater warmed up the juice to kill off any germs and poured it into cartons. How did your carrots get in your lunchbox? Last spring, your carrots were growing in a field on a vegetable farm. You wouldn't have seen any carrots then, just long rows of feathery leaves. As the leaves grew taller in the summer sun, each carrot root pushed deeper into the earth, soaking up water and turning orange. By late summer, they had swelled so much that the top of each carrot poked out of the earth. Then the pickers pulled them up, the carrots were washed and packed into trucks. How did the chocolate chip in your cookie get in your lunchbox? Cookies are made from flour, sugar, and butter, and this one's got chocolate chips in it. Chocolate starts off as a bean. Well, lots of beans, which grow in pods on a cocoa tree. The pods are picked from the tree, then they are cut open and the beans are scooped out. These beans are spread out and left to dry in the sun. The dried beans are taken to a factory, sometimes on the other side of the world. In the factory, they are cleaned, roasted, and ground into a thick, sticky paste. Sugar gets mixed in so the paste gets sweeter, but it's still gritty, so it gets squeezed, stirred, melted, and cooled. To make really smooth chocolate, it takes a lot of work. Finally, the chocolate is molded into blocks, and those are made into little chips that will melt in your mouth all over again. How did your clementine get in your lunchbox? Early in the summer, the trees in the clementine grove were full of sweet-smelling, waxy flowers. As the flowers died, a tiny green clementine berry began to grow out of each one. The clementine swelled in the warm sun, turning from green to yellow. By the time the cooler winter weather arrived, the clementines had turned orange and were so heavy and full of juice that they made the branches droop. Pickers climbed ladders to reach them. They had to wear gloves so they didn't bruise the tender fruit inside the skin. They washed them and packed them, and the grower sent the boxes in the trucks to the market. You've eaten it all, from the first bite of bread to the last piece of fruit. It came from fields and farms, from orchards, from groves, and from dairies. So many people helped bring it to you. Farmers and bakers, cheese and chocolate makers, pickers, packers, and truck drivers. And now it's all in your stomach, starting to do the job that food does, helping you grow taller and stronger and giving you get up and go. Okay, in this book, we read about a lot of different farms, and not all of those farms are similar to the ones we have in Iowa. For example, we don't grow any cocoa in Iowa. Actually, we don't grow any cocoa in the United States because it's not warm enough. If you're looking at the pictures, you can see some illustrations that give us a clue about that. You can see that there's monkeys in that tree. We don't have any monkeys in the United States who don't live in a zoo. So we have some clues that that's not here. We also are able to grow tomatoes outside in Iowa, but you've probably seen some of these plastic greenhouses that they talked about in the book too. So not all of this food grows in Iowa, but there's farms all over the world, and we share that food. So we might share some of the corn we grow with a country who doesn't grow much corn, but they might have cocoa beans that we can use. And so we share, and that's how everyone in the world gets their food. So we're going to talk about what makes our Iowa farms unique. And we have a little project. Some of you might not be doing this same project. In just a second, Mrs. Wagner is going to help you make Iowa in a bag. You're going to put a farm in your pocket, and she'll show you how to make that. Some of you might not be making those, and that's okay. If you're not, hopefully you have this page, and it's going to explain to you what makes our Iowa farms so special. So I hope you'll take a minute to make one of those projects or to look through this information. If you're not doing those things with us today, we're glad you joined us, and we can't wait to talk more about agriculture with you this year.
Hello everyone, my name is Erica Wagner, and I teach with Mrs. Clymer for Siouxland Ag in the Classroom. You've already been talking about what Iowa uses for agriculture, for their crops and for their livestock. Now we're going to make a fun activity called Iowa in a bag. You're going to make a farm charm, so you're going to have Iowa in a little bitty bag. So to start the activity, you're going to use a little bag like this. And the first thing that we need or that we have in Iowa is really rich soil. Okay, Iowa is known for its black, rich soil. So today, the first thing that's going to go in our Iowa in a bag is going to be our soil. But I didn't have real soil in my house or in my office. I have coffee grounds. Okay, so the first thing that's going to go in to represent our soil in Iowa is coffee grounds. The next thing that's going to go in my bag is I have brought these green leaves. Now, in Iowa, we have lots of green leaves. Maybe it's a corn leaf. Maybe it's a bean leaf. Maybe it's a hay leaf. Okay, lots of green leaves, and that comes from the start of our rich soil. So in our bag goes our green leaf. The next thing we're going to put in our Iowa in a bag is our number one crop. Our number one crop, like Mrs. Clymer already told us, is corn. So we have a whole thing of corn right here. We'll pick out a kernel. Okay, our number one crop, our corn. The next crop that we grow, soybeans. Okay, so those are the little round soybeans. They start out so little, and by the time we harvest them, they are probably around 4 feet tall in the field. Okay, so soybean is our next part. So we have our rich soil, we have our seeds, we have our green leaf. What else do you think we need in order to grow these? It is blue. We need rain. And we're lucky enough here in Iowa to get very timely rains that grow our crops because of that rich soil. So in goes the rain. The next thing we're going to need is yellow. And I bet you can already guess that's the sun. We're going to need the sunshine. Again, very blessed in Iowa to have sunshine. All right, and then I have these colorful palms. Now, Mrs. Clymer talked about livestock on a farm, right? That's our animals that produce something. Maybe it's milk, maybe it's meat, maybe it's wool, okay, fiber. That's another thing that our livestock produce. So I'm going to pick, I raise sheep, so I'm going to pick, I'm going to pick a white palm to represent wool for my sheep. Okay, so that's our livestock. Now, maybe you're going to pick a black palm for cattle, or a red palm for chickens. All right, just know that whichever palm you pick, that is representing your livestock, your animal that produces something. Not your cat, not your dog, not your companion animal, but your livestock, your animal that produces something. Okay, so when you're done making your Iowa in a bag, you're going to want to make sure it's sealed very good. Okay, and then you'll be able to share this with your family and friends. You'll be able to know that the bottom layer is that good soil, and then we have our green leaf along with our corn, our soybean, our water, our sun, and our livestock. And that's what makes a farm in Iowa. All right, so enjoy making this and sharing this with your family and friends.